So we've been watching with Claire Woodward and David Stevenson. What a tumultuous TV week, Claire. I hardly know what to say about it. It sort of feels as though the Crown has been overtaken by real events. I don't know where I am.
Absolutely. You've got the BBC doing itself in over the Royals. You've got the Royals doing themselves in on with Prince Harry on Apple Television. The Royals are the story, and considering how hard they do try. Oh, and Princess Beatrice is pregnant as well, isn't she?
That's the important one. I forgot that.
Some good news, but for a family that likes to keep out of the press and doesn't like it, they're all over it like a rash, aren't they?
Maybe secretly they've got a new PR strategy. It's a sort of black PR strategy we're not aware of yet. It's just to completely plaster themselves all over the media and television until we all explode. I mean, but the thing is, the viewing figures, I haven't seen the viewing figures yet for some of it, but it'll be interesting if things like Harry's Apple TV launch gets a good audience, because it launched overnight in America, and whether people are bothered with another streamer, who knows, but we'll see. So we'll have a chat then about Panorama, the Diana interview, the Thursday night, BBC One actually in the end. The Pact, BBC One, the new drama set in a brewery in Wales on Monday. Innocent, which went up against, was the Battle of the Thrillers. Oh my God, that's a dangerous precedent. Inside Number 9, because I know you really like it so much, we'll talk about that again. That was out on Monday. And Eurovision is back, the semi-finals of Eurovision, which we've watched already. So there we are. You can't beat, what a lineup for this week.
It's glorious, isn't it? I mean, and also it's the second part of Gods of Snooker, which is great to see Steve Interesting Davis gradually become more interesting as he's managed properly. So Absolutely. Maybe the Royals should take a lesson from that.
Yes, the gods with Barry Hearn, who created them. I mean, I think he's the god of snooker, really, and they're the underlings. But anyway, so Panorama. Panorama on Panorama. When I first saw this in the listings, I thought it was a bit of a joke, really. I mean, I don't know whether we're to take it as a parody, but we're now looking for guidance from Panorama on their own show that has now been utterly and completely discredited. I mean, it was quite compelling in a way just to look at John Ware's face, wasn't it? Which just this was sort of slightly.
I think the word a picture of incredulity applies here, doesn't it?
I know, and he got more incredulous as the episode went on, and he sort of huddled there in his barber coat as the revelations became more sensational by the minute. I mean, did you enjoy it or not?
Well, I don't think enjoy is the right word, really, is it? Because, there's so many questions that are raised. But, I mean, it's almost like the BBC is, flagellating itself after Jimmy Savile, isn't it? They're very keen to get out there with the apologies now. But, frankly, it's far too late now.
It is, absolutely. I mean, to do apologies to people 26 years after the event, it's just a little bit late. I mean, you could consider that rude, really. I mean, it was astonishing. I suppose the TV event that clips that was actually Prince William making his statement straight into a television camera. Now, that is unusual. I mean, normally the royals post something on Twitter, or probably Instagram is the chosen social media. And so he spoke straight down the barrel of the camera, and that was incredibly emotional after the Panorama documentary, I thought.
Well, you wouldn't want to be Nicholas Witchell, would you, the BBC's royal correspondent? Because, he's probably just flip the bird on every public event that he attends. But, you've got both brothers now. They might not speak to each other, but they're both sort of united in the fact that the media killed their mother.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only person that was missing... Sorry, go on.
No, which is going to make it difficult for Harry, isn't it? Because Harry wants to be a TV producer. So riding one horse with two arseholes, as my mother used to say.
That's sounding very uncomfortable for both animals. The only person missing, of course, in all of this, and who hasn't told his story and probably never will, is Martin Bashir. I mean, I wonder whether he's planning a big interview. Maybe Oprah will do him next week. He'll probably fly to America and be welcomed into the fold over there. I mean, that's
brilliant. Talk about the very definition of TV will eat itself. That is it. And I just find it ironic that he then became the royal editor,
the religion
I find it
editor.
ironic he became the religion editor of the BBC, and at the end of Panorama, you can see him sat interviewing the Archbishop of Canterbury, still wearing his bicycle clips and a coat. I mean, that's not very respectful, is it? Maybe that's a sign of his slapdash journalism.
Well,
But you know, he got the great. He's got great interviews.
He put the whole thing together himself. I mean, I just find it extraordinary. I was talking to a contact about this and how you would go towards actually concocting these bank statements. It's the sort of thing that an MI5 operative would do. Really, I mean, that's what spies normally use. I mean, is it the sort of thing you know down the old Kent Road in a pub you'd get someone to do? I mean, it is extraordinary that he's managed to muck this up himself.
Yeah, well, it's extraordinary that he used that graphic designer who'd gone freelance from the BBC to work for the BBC, and then never worked for the BBC again because of what he'd done for Martin Bashir. It's just an absolute shit show. It really is. And all the programme was done very much undercover, wasn't it? Very much behind, the scenes. No one else in Panorama knew what this special programme was. We all know, we're all journalists, we all know that sometimes things have to be done very undercover, but now we know why this was done very undercover. It was fairly immoral stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a shame that people like Steve Hewlett, who had a fantastic reputation, are now having that sort of dragged asunder. But then he did say, when I think Harry Dean, who was the deputy editor of Panorama, asked him, and it was basically mind your fucking business, wasn't it? So, I mean, he can't speak for himself. Diana can't speak for herself about it. But in the end, she wanted to get these issues out there, and I think people wanted to hear her side of the story after the Jonathan Dimbleby interview. I mean, there's another interview that we don't really see. We're probably not going to see this one again. There's a string of royal shows that you'll never see again, aren't there? There'll be some sort of deep archive of these videos. There'll be the Royals, the original Prince Philip reality show that you remember, I know.
Well, I mean, isn't that the irony? That was the lovely royal show that we saw, them barbecuing and Prince Edward going to get an ice cream at the corner shop. We can't see that. Now we can't see the worst things. I mean, who would want to be doing the royals' PR now? I mean, get rid of them, I say, for their own sake. If this is what happens when you're a royal, it's not nice, is it?
It's a Republican's dream, but I suppose in a way, it's a TV maker's dream as well, because you turn on a TV camera in front of any of them and it's great television. We wouldn't have thought. I mean, I know we joked about the Kardashians initially when Harry and Meghan did their first show, but really, I mean, this is fantastic. It's a bit of a horror show at the moment, but it is fantastic reality TV if anyone dared ever make it.
But I mean, the thing with Harry and Meghan's show with Oprah, it just seems to me, I haven't seen it, but it's very much, let's talk about our mental health, but it's not offering any solutions. I mean, those of us old enough to remember That's Life on the BBC, remember things like, Childline and all the campaigning they did. It was television offering a solution. It was that bit more than consumer journalism. This just seems to be people saying, I'm really depressed. I'm having Lady Gaga having a tough time, which is great because she can afford some psychotherapy, but most people have to wait for the NHS. It's all very well opening these floodgates, but not offering any more, I think, is disingenuous.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I mean, really, you shouldn't be taking a lot of money for it either. I mean, these are very serious issues. And if you're going to treat them seriously on television, there shouldn't be a whole surrounding of celebrity in order to do it. I mean, I don't really get that. I mean, what about some more ordinary people and take them into the fold and talk them through? I mean, the whole thing of him sharing every single part of his own being is just too much, isn't it? Talk about keep it private. That whole thing has gone out the window, I know, but you want to keep some of this back. Where does it all end for him and Meghan? That's what I don't understand. I mean, once you've trawled through everything in your past life that you believe may have affected your mental health genuinely or not, where do you go from there? Do you just sit there at the camera, right, we've said everything now, and then we go to black?
Well, it's like someone once said to me about Jade Goody, you know, when I was trying to get a column from Jade Goody as an exclusive somewhere I was working. They said, well, you know, we can't offer her as an exclusive because she has to go everywhere else to, you know, to make money, you know, sell different stories to different papers. And are Meghan and Harry any better than that? You know, they are selling their lives for personal consumption. And talking about, you know, the sins of the fathers being wrought on the sons, is Harry not doing that to his own children in the future? You know, they will have their lives, they will want their kids' lives to be protected, but having spilt their own guts, it's ridiculous.
It is. I mean, it's interesting because I saw a TV news piece about children and about what was going to happen with them growing up in California. And someone was pointing out that they wouldn't be recognized and people wouldn't know who they were. But that's absolutely ludicrous. Everyone will know who they are in America. And you're right, these sins will be visited on the children and they'll have to go through that lifestyle. And we had the whole thing in the week as well about Harry completely messing up what the amendments and the freedom of the press meant in America. I mean, that's just, is he some strange puppet that we're not aware of?
Well, you know, allegedly he's not very bright, is he? And I mean, the thing is, he must be surrounded by top-level PR people. You know, we know it's like a journalist trying to get an interview with a Hollywood star is virtually impossible, and they say nothing, but they still get on the cover of the magazine. But Harry just seems to be able to say anything he likes, and regardless of whether he looks an idiot or not. I mean, if they are paying for PR advice, I think they should ask for their money back.
Yeah, so sack the agent, Harry, and well done to John Ware for not looking too direly depressed about everything to do with Panorama. Probably 4 stars for Panorama just because you were just hanging on every word to find out what on earth had gone on and why this interview had got done in the way it had been done. So 4 stars from me. I don't know about you, Claire.
Well, I'll give it 4. I mean, I would rather it hadn't happened, really. It's one of those programmes. But, you know, I was glad the BBC have put their hands up, but the BBC are in dire straits at the moment. I think they only need one more major problem like this, and that's it for them.
Yeah, trust is a big issue for them now, isn't it? Right, well, let's have a talk about the Battle of the Thrillers, the Pact on BBC One, and Innocent on ITV. Both stripped over the first 2 nights. I think they were clashed on the first 2 nights, but then ran out over the week. Innocent did anyway. Pact was set in a brewery. Innocent was set in
the Lake District, wasn't it? Yeah,
in Keswick.
Yeah.
I mean, the lakes is a sort of, they both looked the sort of same, didn't they? The way it went, you know, we were down in the Welsh woodlands and mooching about in there with bodies and forensics teams, and then we had Keswick as well in the lakes. So we had a sort of battle of the natural environments. I mean, did you find them compelling?
I found them beige, frankly. I found them. I sort of watched the Pact all in one go last night, and I've watched Innocent today, and my mind was going, which one is which? They both feature. I mean, you know, the Pact is a sort of, you know, whodunit murder thing, and Innocent is a woman who is found innocent. Was it serves 5 years for a crime, and then is found innocent. They're trying to find the real murderer, but I just found them beige, as I say, not compelling. And I think, you know, 2 hour episodes for each would have done me very nicely. But it was odd that they were kind of stripped throughout the week, going head to head. Because I think if you'd been trying to watch both of them, you'd have been hard pressed to remember which was which and which channel you were watching.
I mean, the irony for me was that you had the 4 women in the brewery who'd then
they couldn't organise a piss up in one, could they?
They couldn't organise a piss up, but they certainly couldn't organise a murder. I think. And they left their boss drunken and full of coke in the woods. I mean, that reminded me of an Unforgotten episode, but told backwards, because Unforgotten is normally about a group of people, and then you work your way through the episodes to find you know, how they're responsible for this. Whereas
Yeah.
this was, you knew these were the four people and they had done something. Of course, I haven't seen the rest of it, so I don't know, but you can happily spoil it for me if you like, Claire. But and the other, of course, Innocent's written by Chris Lang, so the whole thing was quite bizarre. I mean, I found the first episode of Innocent a little bit dull. I mean, it might have just been me, but the first episode ended with a couple sort of shagging on the stairs before he'd had any dinner. I thought that was ridiculous.
Probably didn't want didn't want to do it on a full stomach, did he? I mean, I know this is the second series of Innocent, isn't it? And I didn't see the first one, so I started watching the second, and I thought, oh, it's a continuation of the last series, and it isn't. But confusingly, you would think it was.
I know that was a silly trick, was it, to drag people in? I thought that was disingenuous because they're not linked. They're self-contained stories, aren't they? But I think the Pact was probably the pick of it for me because it sort of didn't take itself too seriously. And it also had Jason Hughes, who was Jones in Midsummer Murders. So, I mean, the sort of likable husband who was sort of put on notice for promotion. If you do well on this case, we'll take you out of uniform and you can be a detective. So he must have had some sort of TV reference from Tom Barnaby or something. He'd obviously fallen on hard times in Wales and become a uniform policeman, and then they're sort of now dragging him out. I mean, I'm going completely sort of meta and off piste here, but you know, it was.
But I mean, it was a great.
You find your enjoyment where you can, don't you?
Well, exactly, but it was an interesting male cast as well as, you know, the sort of female leads, because there was Eddie Marsan in it and Adrian Edmondson playing a very low-key character of the husband. I mean, I just had to keep. It was almost like a blink and you'll miss it role. Yeah, because I think he's a very good actor.
I know. I didn't get the cast was much better. Laura Fraser was very good. I thought she sort of held it all together. Bumbling Jason Hughes was, as I say, quite likable, and I was following him along the way. And then Ade Edmondson with a black eye or a bad eye, and I don't know, you know, was there an abusive relationship going on? There's a bit too much potential plot lying in the undergrowth, wasn't there? You just waiting for this stuff to come out. I mean, we will get to see the end of it, although we all end up on iPlayer, did it?
Yes, it did. And I think it was 6 episodes, which for me was 1 or 2 too many. I just think, I know we all love stories, but I just think there's too much storytelling. But somebody put on Twitter this week that they wish there was a Netflix category of films that don't show women getting murdered. And I agreed with that. And I agree that there are too many murder and police procedurals that all seem to be the same, which was the Pact and Innocent for me this week.
But now also we have, I mean, you talk about women being the victims. I mean, I think women are increasingly the perpetrators as well. I mean, so women, this is probably a marketing exercise. Let's be cynical about this. You know, the TV channels going, let's just make lots of dramas for women, about women as murderers and victims. I mean, that's sort of what we had in both of these. I mean, so it's the ultimate nightmare all around, isn't it? You know, how often, well, I don't dream it, but you wake up in the morning and you may have murdered somebody. You know, this is played out on the small screen, isn't it? You know. Let's move on to Inside. Well, let's move on to Inside Number 9, your favourite programme, Claire.
Oh, my favourite blokey old programme, yes. Whatever.
I mean, I've only written down one note on this week's episode because I was away for the night and I wrote it down, and it was Superfan. The whole Superfan world, I think, is absolutely fascinating. I suppose in a way, there's nothing much more to say about them. They're just absolutely obsessed with the programme. And they want to meet everybody involved. They want to be the actors. They want to be the writer. And it's sometimes in the imagination of Pemberton and Reece Shearsmith, it ends up being a tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, I found it very interesting, actually, thinking it's almost the guys that write it, they're almost biting the hand that feeds them, because, you know, the programs they make are sort of superfan programs that superfans like. So you know, when this guy comes along and he can sort of sleep in the spare bedroom, and he says, "Oh, is that the one that you keep the head of some monster from some drama you've been in?" And they're commenting on how heavy the National Television Awards are and how you could bash someone in the head with them and kill them quite easily. I mean, it was quite self-referential, I thought.
Oh, it was, but I think maybe this is going to be the most self-referential series of Inside Number 9, which is probably off the scale, really. But it did remind me of a writer of science fiction who got that I won't name, he got very drunk at a party once and chased me around the room and wanted to box me. So
oh, I know who that was.
Be
yes,
really
send
unfair.
us £25,000 in a brown envelope to reveal who it is. Yes.
And in the end, he did it. In the end, he did apologise. But I think in a room where there's lots of people thronging around writers who become, you know, these sort of superhuman people that can hang on to these series for, you know, 6 or 7 seasons, you get fans around that are absolutely obsessed with them. Well, 4 stars again for me, because I was completely compelled watching this thing in a hotel room. I thought, my goodness me, that doesn't happen very often. So 4 stars, probably 4.5. There we are.
Good God, and I'm still going with 3. But I mean, I just want it. I want to like it. That's the thing. I want to like it more. But hey,
it'll happen. I'll bore you into submission. There you are.
Yeah. Okay.
So Eurovision was back in the semi-finals, which I thought were really interesting and entertaining to watch compared with the big series on Saturday night. But they were sort of slightly pared down in a way. And I appreciated the voting, which was over in next to no time.
Oh, well, this is the thing everyone hates. I mean, you know, Eurovision, I've got lots of friends who are Eurovision fans. I've actually been to Eurovision myself, so I kind of understand the excitement. And it's the voting that kills it every time. That and us never winning as you know, as the UK. So I'm just delighted to see speed voting.
It was incredible, wasn't it? The voting was sort of over in no time at all. And then it was announced. But of course, when it goes out on the Saturday night, the voting takes up a full hour. So the programme would be cut by a quarter, wouldn't it?
Well, you could always fill it with now some music, some proper music. No, I don't mean that. But I mean, the thing is, the thing about Eurovision that not a lot of people know is that they have a full run-through show before the real Eurovision. So on a Friday night in Rotterdam, they'll be having like a run-through show, which I've been to. You know, so I've seen in Vienna Conchita Wurst flying through the audience, but it not being broadcast. So effectively, they've done it all. And I'm sure that the panels throughout the countries know who they're going to vote for anyway. So they can just say, you know, UK nil point and so on rather more quickly. But hey, it's nice to be able to see the semi-finals though.
Yeah,
particularly as we got to see Italy, who was so rock and roll and a bit sexy and have got through to the final. They're my favourite for this year.
There were a couple of sort of rock style acts, weren't there? And I mean, I like to see them, but it's really the sort of comedy acts, whether they're intentional or not, that I'm just sitting there just waiting for. You know, the Russian entry, who I think that was meant to be a whole feminist thing, a sort of doll's house, or literally in a Russian doll and breaking out of the Russian doll. I really liked that because it was funny and had quite a decent message to it.
But this is where we fall down, I think. And again, I'm told by my friends who know more about Eurovision than me, we fail as the UK on presentation. You know, you're talking about this amazing Russian presentation, and ours is just some guys with horns in the background who misses. But you know, we remember things like was it the Poles or the Russians where they had the singing grannies doing the laundry a few years back?
Oh, I loved that. I thought that was fantastic. The milkmaids, yes, that was all.
Yes,
very
exactly. And you know, but we need to do better. You know, we are the BBC, despite the kicking we give it, can still do good stuff. And, you know, Eurovision is still hugely popular, you know, Eurovision, or Gay Christmas, as we call it around these parts.
I was completely obsessed with the very tall presenter who was sort of, well, I was saying head and shoulders above the rest. I mean, she literally was. We always have sort of 4 presenters who seem sort of slightly disengaged, or is that they've got a different attitude to presenting than we have? Our presenters at shows like that, oh, hello, here we are, this is fantastic, we're having a brilliant time. Whereas there's a little bit, sometimes they can be a bit understated on the continent, can't they?
I think so. I mean, I think, the country that does Eurovision best is Sweden, where they are full of pomp and excitement, and they still make a really big go of the sort of heats that select the song, which is called Melody Festival, and that is a big excuse me. Melody Festival is a big Saturday night show in Sweden. It's a massive event for choosing these songs, whereas our entry tends to sort of, slip out like a recalcitrant fart sometimes.
In a deserted nursing home.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, I think people would like, I would still love to know who chooses our Euro song. It's very much kept under wraps, but I would love to know who's responsible for finally choosing the song.
That's a meeting, isn't it, down in the sort of local pub somewhere near the sort of Langham Hotel or something in central London. The BBC get together for 10 minutes. So, I mean, it's weird because we go from one thing to another, don't we? Sometimes we have a voting choice, and then sometimes we don't. They make a big thing out of it. Sometimes we've had a series, haven't we? We've had
exactly.
6 weeks of choosing it and going, oh, we haven't even, so the selection process has been longer than the show itself by a long way. But what do you do with it? But you're better off sort of, we don't know whether to take it seriously or not. That's a basic thing, isn't it?
Well, I mean, I think Eurovision is essentially a very good thing, because just to, I would recommend that anybody who can go should, because the atmosphere in the cities is so exciting, and there's a real feeling of fellowship when you go to these Euro events. It really is quite something. But when you look at the songs that we turn in, we're not going to have that back in the UK anytime now, which I think is rather sad, because it has become political voting, particularly with the Eastern European states in, and we just can't rely on Holland to vote for the UK every year anymore.
But if they disliked us so much, we've gone now anyway, so surely they'll start to like us again. Perhaps this year will be the underdog year.
Oh, I do hope so. I mean, we are still part of the European Broadcasting Union, aren't we, for some reason? Is your European Broadcasting Union really necessary? So we still qualify for Eurovision. But it's interesting, I think, that America is going to do its own song contest, which is going to be like Eurovision, but with a song from each state. 52 of the bloody things, can you imagine?
Can't we be in it, because we're like the 53rd state anyway?
We are almost. Well, it'll be like Australia joining the Eurovision Song Contest, won't it? So, are you rooting for the Australian entry this year, David?
I think the Australian entry didn't get through. It looked at it. I mean, I think it was called. I'm terrible joke. I mean, it was called Technicolor, and all I could think about is the term in Australia, Technicolor yawn, which has got nothing to do with singing at all. On that wonderful note.
Yes, we can talk about Eurovision next week, and we'll go and have a bet and see who wins.
And so on that note, thank you very much, Claire. That's been wonderful, and happy viewing, and hopefully not too much royal viewing. Who knows? There'll be another royal program around the corner very soon.